So for decades, I mean, pretty much as long as we've been doing this, the fertility industry has placed nearly 100% of the pressure and the clinical focus squarely on the shoulders of the mother.
Yeah, that's definitely been the standard.
Right. I mean, if you picture a couple going through IVF, the mental image is almost always focused on the egg. The narrative has been incredibly consistent, like, if the mother's egg is healthy, you're good to go.
Exactly. The biological heavy lifting was just assumed to be maternal.
But according to a massive new review of over 26,000 embryos, we have been ignoring a glaringly obvious variable this entire time.
A huge variable.
Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today, we are exploring a paradigm shift that is actively rewriting the rules of reproductive medicine. We are taking the clinical magnifying glass off the egg and pointing it directly at the father's sperm.
And, the implications of this shift are honestly difficult to overstate. We are looking at a groundbreaking 2025 research paper published in Reproductive Biomedicine Online, along with clinical insights from the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness, and a really comprehensive synthesis of European and American medical studies.
We've got a lot of data on the table today.
We do. And when you look at all of this together, the message to fertility clinics is just loud and clear. Just counting a man's sperm is no longer enough.
Because it used to just be a numbers game, right?
Completely. For years, the standard practice was just checking a box. If there were enough sperm present to facilitate IVF or ICSI, which is where, a single sperm is injected directly into an egg, the clinic would just check that box and move on.
Like, oh, we have a swimmer, we're good.
Exactly. But the mandate now is that clinics must actively work to improve the cellular quality of that sperm before they even start.
Okay, let's unpack the scale of this, because the 2025 Reproductive Biomedicine Online paper is, well, it's staggering.
It really is.
We are not talking about a small, localized trial here. The researchers pulled together 9 high-quality studies encompassing more than 26,000 embryos.
That's a massive sample size.
Right. When you have a sample size that massive, you aren't just guessing at trends anymore. You are looking at undeniable biological patterns.
Yeah. A sample size of 26,000 allows researchers to just eliminate the static. You can see the actual mechanics of embryo development. But what makes this study truly revolutionary isn't just the numbers, it's how they gathered the data.
Oh, the methodology. I am so glad you brought this up.
They didn't just look at an embryo on day 1 and then check back on day 5.
No, the methodology is incredible. To really appreciate it, I think you have to understand how this used to be done.
Right, the old way.
Historically, embryologists had to physically remove the embryo from its incubator to look at it under a microscope.
Which is stressful for the embryo.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
It meant exposing it to slight changes in temperature and environment.
Yeah.
But for this research, they utilized closed time-lapse incubation systems.
Which is such a game changer.
So the embryos stayed perfectly safe and undisturbed in their optimal environment while these specialized cameras filmed them, taking a picture every few minutes.
And by tracking that cellular division and growth in continuous real time, the researchers could pinpoint the exact timeline of development.
Like watching a flower bloom on fast forward.
Exactly like that. They could see the precise minute an embryo hit a milestone, and crucially, the exact minute things started to slow down or go wrong.
So looking at all this continuous time-lapse data, the best way I can think to visualize it is to compare embryo development to a biological relay race.
Okay, I like that.
Imagine a standard relay race on a track. During the first leg of that race, which correlates to the first 3 to 4 days of development when the embryo is just this tiny cluster of cells, the mother's egg is firmly carrying the baton.
The egg is doing almost all the cellular heavy lifting there.
Right. And the time-lapse data shows that during those first few days, the quality of the sperm actually doesn't matter all that much. The egg is sprinting down the track, totally in control of the pace.
But then comes the critical handoff.
Yes.
As the embryo transitions to what we call the blastocyst stage.
Which is day 5 or 6, right?
Yeah. The more advanced stage around day 5 or 6 where it prepares to actually implant into the uterine wall. That's when the egg passes the baton. This is the moment the father's sperm takes the anchor leg.
And according to the cameras, if the dad's sperm is compromised in any way, that anchor leg instantly turns into a sluggish jog.
It's a visible drop in performance.
The paper found that if the sperm has a low count, if it has poor motility, which is its swimming ability, or if the father is older, the physical development of the embryo visibly slows down. It just takes significantly longer to reach those necessary late-stage milestones.
It struggles to cross the finish line.
Now, I do have to challenge this for a second.
Okay, go for it.
Because if we think about the basic mechanics of reproduction, I mean, the sperm's only physical job is to travel to the egg and deliver its payload of DNA on day 1.
Right.
So if we were talking about an embryo on day 5, the sperm is already inside. The embryo is already growing.
Mm-hmm.
Why on earth does the sperm's historical swimming ability matter days later?
It's a great question.
I mean, it doesn't need to swim anymore.
Yeah.
It has already crossed the finish line.
And that is the exact paradox that confused researchers for a long time.
Really?
Oh, absolutely. The physical act of swimming is definitively over. But the new data reveals that motility and concentration aren't just about the journey to the egg.
Okay.
They act as vital biological markers of the sperm's overall internal health and its DNA integrity.
So the swimming speed is functioning like an indicator light on a car dashboard.
That's a perfect way to put it.
The light itself isn't the problem. It's telling you something deeper is broken under the hood.
Exactly. A sperm cell that struggles to swim is overwhelmingly likely to be a sperm cell carrying damaged genetic cargo.
Which is the real issue.
Yes. The study specifically notes that sperm DNA damage, which is clinically known as DNA fragmentation, is directly linked to this slower embryo growth.
So the DNA is literally broken.
Yeah, fragmented. If the DNA inside the sperm is fragmented or broken, the embryo struggles to read that genetic blueprint during the anchor leg of the relay race.
Wow.
It's trying to build a complex structure with torn-up instructions.
That sounds impossible.
It really slows things down. But conversely, the time-lapse cameras prove that high sperm motility reliably indicates intact DNA, which results in faster-growing embryos, better implantation rates, and ultimately much higher live birth rates.
So the equation shifts entirely. Better sperm equals healthier, faster-growing embryos, which equals a significantly higher chance of actually taking home a baby.
That's the bottom line.
And this brings us to a massive turning point for you, the listener. If you are sitting there realizing that the conclusion of the 2025 paper is that we absolutely must improve sperm quality, well, the immediate question becomes, how do we actually do that?
Yeah. Right. How do you fix it?
How do you repair a microscopic cell while it is still inside the male body?
Because recognizing the deficit is only half the battle.
Yeah.
The solution requires interventions that fundamentally alter the cellular environment where the sperm is actually produced. And our sources point to a highly effective intervention that sits at a fascinating intersection: traditional Chinese medicine, or TCM.
Okay.
Specifically, the integrated use of acupuncture and custom Chinese herbal formulas.
Now, I have to ask on behalf of everyone listening, I mean, I consider myself a pretty open-minded person, but how does placing tiny needles in the skin or drinking a botanical tea physically alter the shape, the swimming speed, or the DNA integrity of a microscopic cell deep inside the reproductive system?
It's a fair question.
From the outside, it sounds a little bit like magic.
It definitely sounds counterintuitive if you look at it through a purely mechanical lens. But when we break down the biological mechanisms, there's absolutely no magic involved.
It's just science.
It is pure physiology. Acupuncture works through neuromodulation.
Neuromodulation.
Yeah. When a needle is inserted at specific points, it stimulates the peripheral nervous system, which sends signals to the brain to trigger very specific physiological responses. Our sources highlight 4 main biological pathways where TCM repairs the exact deficits the time-lapse cameras identified.
Okay, let's go through these. The first pathway mentioned is blood flow, which feels like the most direct mechanical link.
Yes.
The testicles are essentially the body's sperm factory. And like any manufacturing plant, the output is entirely dependent on the quality of the supply chain.
Exactly. And the nervous system response triggered by acupuncture causes local vasodilation, which is a widening of the blood vessels.
Opening up the highways.
Right. By driving significantly more blood flow to the reproductive organs, you are delivering higher concentrations of essential nutrients, oxygen, and hormones to the exact cells responsible for creating sperm.
Better raw materials going into the factory means a better product coming out on the assembly line.
Precisely.
But even with a great supply chain, the factory floor itself can be toxic. which leads to the second mechanism lowering oxidative stress and inflammation.
Right, and you can think of oxidative stress as biological rust.
Biological rust, I love that.
It's a great visual. It is the cellular damage caused by everyday metabolic processes, environmental toxins, poor diet, and just lifestyle factors.
And this rust is what's causing the damage.
Yes, this rust is one of the primary culprits behind DNA fragmentation, poor swimming speed, and abnormal sperm shapes, which clinics refer to as morphology.
So the Chinese herbal formulas and the acupuncture are working synergistically to clear out that systemic inflammation.
They are essentially rust-proofing the factory.
Wow, rust-proofing the factory, protecting the delicate DNA cargo from getting fragmented before it is ever even deployed.
That's exactly what's happening. And the third pathway dictates how that factory is managed. Because creating healthy sperm requires a very delicate, orchestrated symphony of hormones.
Right.
You hear a lot about testosterone, obviously, but two other major players are FSH and LH.
Let's define those, because they get thrown around a lot in fertility clinics without much explanation.
They really do. So FSH stands for follicle-stimulating hormone. In men, you can think of FSH as the foreman on the factory floor shouting at the cells to produce more sperm.
Okay, the foreman, got it.
And LH is luteinizing hormone, which acts as the signal telling the body to produce the testosterone needed to fuel that entire production process.
It turns the machines on.
Exactly. And TCM doesn't force these levels up artificially the way, say, a synthetic steroid would.
Oh, that makes sense.
Instead, it gently nudges the endocrine system back into a natural balance, allowing the body to produce the optimal hormonal environment for sperm maturation.
And the fourth pathway really pulls all of this together, which is stress reduction. And we aren't just talking about feeling a bit anxious about a deadline at work here.
No, not at all.
We are talking about chronic physiological stress. When a person is locked in a state of chronic stress, the body just floods with cortisol.
And high cortisol levels actively suppress the reproductive system.
Right, because of evolution.
Yes. From an evolutionary standpoint, if your body thinks you are in constant danger, it shuts down non-essential functions, and reproduction is the very first thing to go.
You don't need to make a baby if you're running from a tiger.
Exactly. And acupuncture is incredibly effective at downregulating the sympathetic nervous system, taking you out of that fight or flight mode.
Which lowers the cortisol.
It brings cortisol levels down and takes the biochemical brakes off the body's reproductive functions.
So when you combine those four pathways, more nutrients delivered through increased blood flow, less biological rust damaging the cells, balanced factory hormones, and lowered systemic stress, the clinical results are exactly what the 2025 paper is asking for.
It's the perfect environment.
Men produce higher sperm counts, larger volume, and better motility. And crucially, they see improved morphology and lower DNA fragmentation.
Which fixes the anchor leg of the relay race.
Yes, these are the exact specific metrics the time-lapse cameras proved are necessary to speed up that biological relay race.
But, theoretical mechanisms and centuries-old practices are compelling.
Sure.
But to truly shift a modern medical paradigm, to convince the clinical skeptics out there, you need empirical data.
You need the numbers.
You need hard Western science proving these Eastern methods yield measurable results.
And the way these two medical worlds bridge together is just fascinating. The narrative of the Western studies shows a real evolution of scientific proof.
It really does.
Let's look at the European data first. Back in 2005, researchers from Germany and Italy, P and colleagues, published a study in the highly respected American journal, Fertility and Sterility.
A very prestigious journal.
Absolutely. They looked at men dealing with unexplained infertility.
Mm-hmm.
These men receive acupuncture twice a week for just 5 weeks.
Just 5 weeks.
Yeah, and the results showed significant improvements in sperm motility and morphology. The researchers literally noted fewer structural defects in both the head and the tail of the sperm.
Physically altering the structural integrity of a cell in just 5 weeks is a remarkable clinical finding.
It is. But the wider medical community wasn't entirely convinced yet.
Right, they always want more proof.
Because the skeptical mind naturally assumes it might just be a placebo effect.
Yeah.
The argument was, well, maybe lying on a quiet table in a dark room for an hour twice a week just relaxed them. And the needles didn't actually do anything.
Which is a valid critique, scientifically.
It is. And that skepticism forced researchers to design a much more rigorous test. So in 2009, a researcher named Dieterl and his team in Germany ran a randomized placebo-controlled trial.
Which is huge.
They took men with very low sperm count and poor motility, and they split them into 2 groups. One group got real acupuncture, and the other group got a fake version.
And we should point out, designing a placebo for acupuncture is incredibly difficult.
How do you even do that?
It involves using sham needles that don't actually penetrate the skin, or placing real needles in random locations that are not recognized acupoints.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it is the absolute gold standard for proving whether a physiological change is real or just psychological.
Well, the results of that 2009 study were definitive.
Very much so.
The group that received the real acupuncture saw a clear, statistically significant increase in the percentage of modal swimming sperm compared to the placebo group. It definitively proved that it wasn't just the relaxation of the room. The specific placement of the needles triggered a quantifiable biological change.
And then the American studies provide a wider lens that synthesizes all of these findings. By 2011, researchers at Yosan University in Los Angeles published 2 major syntheses of the existing literature.
So they looked at everything.
Everything. The first, conducted by Paled, synthesized 19 different independent studies.
19 studies.
Yeah, and the conclusion was sweeping. Combining acupuncture with Chinese herbal formulas significantly improved sperm count, concentration, motility, and morphology in subfertile men.
Across the board?
Across the board. And crucially, across all those studies, they noted there were absolutely no adverse effects.
There's virtually no physiological downside to integrating this into a treatment plan.
None at all. And the second 2011 synthesis from Yosan University, conducted by Pryor, focused specifically on that critical issue of DNA fragmentation.
The biological rest.
Exactly. They found that TCM positively affected semen parameters, balanced those crucial hormones, boosted antioxidant levels, and showed incredible potential to reduce that genetic rust.
That's amazing.
This proved vital not just for natural conception, but for drastically improving the outcomes of IVF and ICSI procedures.
So synthesizing all this data creates a perfect closed loop of scientific evidence. You have Western technology, the time-lapse cameras, identifying the exact microscopic deficits in the sperm that are slowing down embryo development on day 5.
Right.
Then you have rigorous clinical trials proving that integrative Eastern medicine effectively targets and repairs those exact deficits.
The cameras provide the irrefutable what, and the integrative medicine provides the actionable how.
So what does this actually mean for you, the listener, as you navigate this? Let's bring all this science out of the research journals and into your real life.
Because that's what really matters.
Exactly. If you are currently navigating the incredibly stressful, high-stakes world of fertility treatments, or you are planning to in the future, the primary takeaway is that you must advocate for the sperm.
Absolutely.
Ask your clinic about their protocols for paternal cellular health. Ask about integrating these methods. A lot of the top fertility centers around the country are already recognizing this paradigm shift.
The good ones are, yeah.
Just remember, these complementary treatments are meant to be utilized alongside your regular Western fertility care, never as a replacement for it. Always work with licensed practitioners and ensure your primary reproductive endocrinologist is in the loop.
And you know, the integrative approach certainly doesn't stop at the clinic door.
Right, there's stuff you can do at home.
The source material emphasizes that your daily lifestyle choices work brilliantly in tandem with traditional Chinese medicine to clear out that biological rust.
What kind of choices?
Quitting smoking entirely, strictly limiting alcohol intake, eating a diet rich in antioxidants, getting regular exercise, and managing weight are fundamental ways to reduce oxidative stress.
It's basically preventative maintenance.
Exactly. You are essentially doing the daily maintenance required to support the cellular health of the sperm factory.
And if you are looking for pioneers who have been operating at this exact intersection of Eastern and Western medicine for decades, our sources highlight the Berkley Center for Reproductive Wellness, located in New York City.
They've been at this a long time.
They hold the distinction of being the first complementary reproductive medicine center in the United States, having operated since 1998.
Wow, 1998.
Yeah, they specialize specifically in improving egg quality, optimizing the uterine lining, and, as we have spent this entire deep dive discussing, actively improving sperm quality to help couples achieve successful outcomes sooner. You can explore their methodologies and clinical approach at berkleycenter.com.
We started today by talking about those incredible time-lapse cameras inside the incubators, capturing thousands of images to reveal the exact moments an embryo divides.
It really is amazing technology.
It is, and it leaves you with a fascinating question to ponder. If technology is just now, in the year 2025, allowing us to see the exact minute a father's cellular health dictates the creation of life, what other invisible milestones in human biology are we completely misjudging right now simply because we haven't found a way to film them yet?
That is something to think about. Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.